Hey, everyone.
Wait. Okay, so we actually already recorded this episode. This is us re-recording. So this is before the show starts. We just wanted to mention it. So I don't know what happened. We recorded this 2 days ago. And I don't know what happened, but my laptop somehow deleted it. I tried looking up and down, left and right, through a black hole to try and find the audio that we filmed, and I just can't find it, so we're re-recording. And so we just wanted to come on before the show started to let you know that in this episode, you'll probably catch us like maybe giggling a lot more or just trying to figure out whether we said something or if we didn't mention something, because we mentioned a lot in the first episode.
We talked a lot in the first episode.
We talked a lot. So I just wanted to bring that up and kind of mention that for you guys. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoy this first episode of Scream City, and I'm sorry.
You guys have a lot of fun.
I hope you guys have a lot of fun.
Hearing us talk a lot of shit.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could you point me in the direction of Scream City? Never mind. I think I found it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Scream City's official first episode. I'm your host, Jessica.
And I'm Monica. I feel like this is maybe episode 1.5 because we actually had to re-record this, but it's fine. But today we're talking about why horror and film means so much to us. So why make our podcast about films and shows, especially about horror? Well, I think most of us who are huge horror freaks, we grew up watching movies and cinema and reading it too. I feel a lot of people who aren't huge horror fans may have not have had the sense of, like, this is okay to watch and fun to watch just as long as you remember that none of it is real type of mentality, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But whether it was a family member or a friend who introduced it to us, I feel a lot of us who are deranged in some type of way actually find horror fun.
Yeah, just a little. You have to be like a little crazy,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, just a little bit. Because I mean, I get it. Like it gets scary and it triggers fight or flight, and it also like anxiety induced. But most adrenaline junkies like Jessica and I really love it. My therapist even let me know that this is probably a feeling that was familiar to me because I grew up in a household that was pretty unpredictable at times, and I tried to seek that same feeling, but possibly from horror movies. So kind of like I can only control this type of feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to get too deep, but right. I think it makes sense, but I mean, cinema in general though is a good escape for a lot of us who just need a bit of a distraction in life, because let me tell you, life can get brutal sometimes. So
in the words of Olivia Rodrigo, God, it's brutal out here.
God, it's brutal out here because damn. But Jess, how did you personally get into like the cinema and the horror life?
Yeah, well, first I like what you mentioned about cinema being a form of escapism,
right.
And I feel like if we have some time later on in the episode, I'd like to get more into that.
Yeah, for sure.
But my love for horror and film began at quite a young age, as it does with most of us.
Right.
I do have to give my older siblings, especially my older sister, a shit ton of credit for introducing me to the cinema world. Mm-hmm. Although I don't remember the very first movie I ever watched. I have so many memories of watching movies with my sister, whether it was Cheaper by the Dozen.
That's a good one.
Right?
With Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, yes.
Yeah.
Agent Coney Banks, School of Rock, or any other, like, Disney original or something like that.
Disney originals be smacking, okay?
For real.
Some of those movies are good.
Yeah, I'd still be watching them right now.
Same.
They're like good comfort movies.
Oh, huge comfort films, yeah, 100%.
But we slowly started transitioning into horror movies as I got older. Every summer, my sister and I made it a tradition to watch When a Stranger Calls because it gave us like 4th of July vibes.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's because there's like a little carnival and fireworks at the beginning. And
fireworks is all that we need for 4th of July.
It's all we need for 4th of July.
Right.
My very first favorite horror movie I watched was Insidious.
Yo, that movie's good.
That movie
is good. I think we mentioned in the first recording that we did of like, I don't care like how big and bold you think you are, like that movie is scary.
Mm-hmm. Along with Sinister.
Yeah. I think Sinister is one of the ones that I think a lot of people don't like because of that. They're like, it's not that scary, but I'm like, I don't know, it's pretty creepy.
I think
Sinister's
whatever.
scary.
It's a talk for a different day, but I feel like people
100%.
who say they don't find Sinister scary are just doing it for show.
And I'm like, whatever, because Sinister is pretty scary.
I'm pretty sure you shit your pants, but whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, Insidious still remains my favorite paranormal film to this day.
100% same.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But my older brother, he was more into like destruction type of movies. So the movie 2012 was on repeat
Yeah.
religiously in my house. And what's that?
That's a good
Not King Kong. Godzilla.
Oh, Godzilla.
He was a huge Godzilla fan.
Okay.
Any destruction, especially when it came to like New York. He's like
Got
a huge
it.
New York buff, and I kind
Okay.
of got that from him.
I
But
love that.
Titanic as well.
Ugh, Titanic, what an
He's-
icon.
Honestly.
The film itself is just an icon.
Yeah. And then my dad was more of like a thriller type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He introduced me to Air Force One with Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman.
Yeah, that one's
That's
a
a
good
good
one.
movie. Taken, of course, with
Of
Liam
course.
Neeson. My
Right.
dad was the one who had to introduce me to Taken,
Out of all people.
And then this isn't really thriller, but I do have a fond memory of watching 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy.
I love that man. I feel like 28 Days Later is a like it's horror, but
It's
I feel like
horror.
I guess it is more kind of action based.
Yeah.
I guess in a way.
You could totally, I think you can consider it thriller
both,
in a
yeah.
way.
Mhm.
And then regarding like TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
we mentioned this in the first episode.
We actually mentioned in the first one, Jessica had said that she doesn't remember watching like horror type of shows,
yeah.
and I was like, you wouldn't consider The Walking Dead one?
And, oh my god, when I
She's
tell
like,
y'all, I
no.
completely forgot about The Walking Dead, y'all.
Yeah, it's because I think when we first started watching it, we watched it religiously when it first came out, which was
What?
honestly a while ago.
12, 13 years ago?
Was it? God damn.
Oh no.
But yeah, and then I think it's still going, right?
It's
You had
still
said
going,
like we think it's still
yes.
going, so I'm like I can't keep up.
We love you,
anymore.
Norman Reedus.
We love you, Norman Reedus.
Yes.
Okay. Glenn
Um,
definitely deserved better.
Yes, but yes, so I did watch The Walking Dead when I was younger. And then I also watched iZombie with my
iZombie,
sister.
yeah.
That's a good show. It's
Melody
not
showed me that
like
one, yeah.
it's not like it's cute, and it definitely has like some scary aspects
Like
to it.
gore, like
It
yeah,
has a lot of
mostly.
gore.
Yeah.
I'm a huge gore whore.
Yeah, right.
And I even got to meet Rose McGiver, who plays Liv,
Mm-hmm.
on iZombie Fan Expo 2019.
Yeah, she was really nice.
She was sweet.
Oh.
And then, okay, I don't know if you can count Stranger Things as horror.
I would 100% count Stranger Things as like a like in the horror category.
Yeah.
There's no way you can.
That's true.
Because like the first and this
latest,
recent season, the
yeah.
fourth one, I was telling her in the first one that we recorded that it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually remember watching the first season in my room by myself, like with the lights off and everything,
Yeah.
and I was pretty creeped out. Like I was pretty like okay, because it gave like dark ET vibes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty scary. And then this past season, it made me feel a lot of things. But scared was actually one of them.
Yeah.
And I think season 2 and 3 were a little bit more action thriller based.
Drama, sort of.
A lot more drama. And I think they kind of gave away a lot with like more gore than suspense, if that kind of makes sense. So,
No, this last season, I saw a tweet. I don't know if I've shown it to you,
I
but
don't know.
I saw a tweet that was like, am I watching The Conjuring
I-
or The Stranger Things?
Okay, yeah,
and it's
it
true.
was pretty scary.
No, it totally does give some sort of Conjuring.
Especially the house.
Yes.
The house gave me it vibes.
It vibes.
It gave
There's
me
a lot of
Pennywise.
it.
Pennywise's house. It
Yeah.
did. It gave me a lot of Pennywise vibes, and I was like, I kind of like this because I loved, loved the remake of
But
it.
the way that everyone was pop, lock, and dropping it after getting cursed by
And
Vecna
let me tell you,
and getting their eyes gouged out.
iconic. What a look.
Vecna is such a king for that.
Vecna stealing eyes.
But we'll save the Stranger Things talk for another
Yeah,
day
we
because
can dedicate a whole
trust
episode or a
me.
couple for Stranger Things. So.
we are going to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now back to what we were talking about.
Yes.
Monica, how did your experience with film and horror
yes.
come to be?
Yes, of course. I feel like I'm about the same. Movies are huge in my family. My family and I used to like going to the movies and like having movie nights at home all the time. But in my family, I think I give a huge amount of credit to my brother-in-law, who I've known since I was about 8 years old, and my dad. So my earliest memory of getting into like specifically horror is watching Beetlejuice and Child's Play with my dad in the living room, which now are like two of my top favorites and like comfort movies that I can watch religiously. But I remember going to like Blockbuster. Do you remember Blockbuster?
Oh my god, of course I
Okay.
remember. There was, well, I don't know which one you, oh, well, because I don't think you lived in Dallas, but The last one I ever went to was down Lower Greenville. So if you're in the
Oh,
Dallas area
Yeah.
and you remember the
okay.
Lower Greenville Blockbuster,
Yeah.
hi.
Hi,
Now-
and I
now
hope
we
you guys are
have-
doing well.
Hope you guys are doing well.
Right, everyone who's working there
Now we
was.
have Movie Trading Company,
We do-
which
I love
shout out
movie-
Movie Trading Company.
I love movie trading companies so much.
But yes, of course I
Shout out
remember
to okay,
Blockbuster.
yeah. So Blockbuster was one of the places that I remember going to all of the time, and my dad let me choose horror movies. And one day I remember I ended up with a 1980s version of The Boogeyman. So that's a good one. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot about it because I haven't seen it in a really long time, but I remember liking it because I remember watching it in my room during the day, and I just fell in love with the feeling of it. So, and then my brother-in-law who would also always come over and have movie nights with my sister and my mom and I. He's the one who introduced me to all different types of films. I have a memory of us watching Texas Chainsaw, the 2003 version, the one with oh my god, hold on. Her name is on the tip of my tongue. Her name is on the tip of my
Trust me,
tongue.
we got it.
Jessica
Don't-
Biel.
There we go.
Yes, with Jessica Biel. Yes, such a good one. And we would always have all different types of foods, like pizza, wings, or some different horror nights. We would also eat Maruchan,
Nice.
the ramen
Of course.
cup noodles.
Yes.
So yeah, he also introduced me to The Exorcist, the
Mm-hmm.
1970s version, which that is to this day one of the movies that I can't watch on my own because I am terrified of it.
Mm-hmm.
Given I haven't seen it in a pretty long time, but I think growing up in a Catholic Christian home
Mm-hmm.
and being, terrified of
Satan, I guess,
Satan
himself,
and anything
or-
that's below the surface
Yeah.
of hell is a huge no.
Yeah.
So, and then I grew up with the thought if there's a good, there has to be an evil.
Right.
So everything was terrifying to me at such a young age too.
Mhm.
But I think now if I gave it a chance, I think I don't think I would find it as scary.
Right.
But
you have to find
we'll-
your peace with it.
Yeah, I think I can, But we'll try and rewatch it and maybe kind of dedicate an episode to that because that was one of the ones I remember watching ooh. But I even remember watching Gothica in theaters, the one with Halle Berry. Have you seen that movie?
I have not.
Oh my god, that
I'm-
movie is great. That movie is amazing. It has the biggest plot twist and it's so good. I remember watching it at Studio Movie Girl. But yeah, I mean, I have a long history with horror and cinema and with the cinema world. So in middle school, I became super obsessed with trying to find any form of escapism that I would just watch whatever the hell I was able to find on Netflix. And then I was also a huge Goosebumps fan growing up too. So I don't know if that's common for a lot of other people who are intro to horror, but
Yeah,
horror for children.
for sure.
But a lot of my core memories involve movies in some type of way. So the cinema world in general is a huge comfort place for me, if that's not really already obvious.
No, dude, I loved Goosebumps growing up too. I loved Dr. Maniac.
Dr. Maniac.
Did you ever read that one?
I think we were talking about this the first time we recorded this, but I don't think I remember it too much.
Okay,
What's the premise of it? What's
that's a great question.
That's a good question. It's just I remember loving it so much.
I remember loving it so much. I don't remember. I genuinely really do remember loving it.
And that you thought it was spooky.
Yes, it was one of the first movies. It was one of the first books I read entirely, and I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it was spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, it was spooky.
Mine was the Mask.
Yes.
Do you remember the Mask?
I do remember it. Did I read it? I can't.
I remember
say.
reading it, and then I also remember watching it nonstop. But I also remember the Mask 2 too, and those are so good.
I'm sure if I read it now, it would still freak me out
I love it.
because R.L. Stein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Genius.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we'll talk book talk another day for another episode. But
Right.
you did mention that movies play a big part in your family,
100%.
which I can also relate to because I have a really funny story. My cousins came from Mexico a few years ago for Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay, Christmas. And my sister had all my cousins watch The Quiet Place.
Quiet Place is such a good movie.
It's a great
It's such a good movie.
Oh my god, I could talk hours about how
Same.
amazing that movie is. Now, did most of my cousins fall asleep within the first 10 minutes? Yes. But it's still a wholesome memory that I
embarrassing.
carry with me to this day.
I love that.
And honestly, I know people are like, why The Quiet Place? Of all Christmas horror.
I think we had mentioned this in the first time that we recorded this, that they, like, since they weren't huge horror fans, you were trying to introduce them to something similar.
No, so they do like horror, but I think the reason why I think my sister gave them options, and I think because my sister mentioned that Emily Blunt is in it, they were like, hell yeah, Emily Blunt is hot, and all of that.
They're not wrong.
And
but
I was like, hey, they're not wrong. And
True.
I love John Krasinski too, so it's like
the bi panic that I had during this film
my God.
is insane.
And the second one with Cillian Murphy. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Let me tell you something about Cillian Murphy. Yes.
Yes.
Okay? Yes. That's all you have to know.
Yeah, but shout out to my cousins for being willing to watch crazy horror movies with my sister and I, because I've had a lot of cousins like go with my sister and I to the movie theater to watch like crazy horror movies, and they love it. But anyway, going back to what Monica was mentioning earlier, we always had something going on, so I think we were able to find a form of escapism in watching literally any films when we were younger. And it just felt nice to flee from our current reality for an hour or two and dive into a make-believe world, no matter how cringy that may sound.
I mean, it's true, though. Like, I think it's just so easy to just find. I feel like people can find it in anything, in any type of hobby. I definitely, when people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, watching movies. And it sounds so basic and boring, but I'm like, it's the most fun thing that I can do. I can spend an entire 2 day, like a Saturday, Sunday type of vibe. I can spend it on a couch watching movie after movie, given having a break in between. But like,
whether it's like fantasy, horror, comedy, or whatever, I think we were just trying to constantly seek some sort of sense of security and stability in watching this film, since we didn't have that at home.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like we may just be thinking too much into it.
As we do everything else. But
for sure.
I mean, whatever.
And you guys will notice that
a lot
with these
throughout
episodes
the
that we think too much about things. But
exactly.
It's just how we feel. And we both also like to read. And I feel like we were able to find comfort in that too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And middle school, I think I was able to read quite a lot for the same reason, just finding anything and everything. But I mean, yeah, we're also huge book nerds, Jessica and I. I think we mentioned this in our intro, but we definitely have a couple of episodes dedicated to some novels and books in the future. And I feel like because we like to read, we can also compare like books to their movie/show adaptations, and that's always fun to do too. I think we had kind of dived into this a little bit the first time that we recorded. You were talking about a movie or a show that was adapted from another film. Everything, and that you loved.
I loved the book.
Oh, you liked the book.
I loved the book. The book was really good. The movie, unfortunately, personally, I did not like, and I feel like I'm actually not the only one who thought that.
Okay.
But yeah, just a brief summary, because I feel like I talked about it too much in the first one. But yeah, I loved the book of everything. It's definitely not horror at all.
Right.
It's like a coming
it's just
of
something
age.
different, but that's okay.
Yeah. But with a lot of like horror book to movie adaptations, I feel like they genuinely, most of them, get the gist of what the book is about. I feel like you've read more book to movie adaptations than I have.
I think for some, yeah. Like, are you talking about horror specifically, or
in any, I
anything?
guess.
I'm telling you, again, we dived into this the first time we recorded it, but the first time that I was like blown out of my mind of how close the adaptation was from book to movie was The Fault in Our Stars.
Yes.
The way that the detail was about, like, I'm talking about detail, like the way that he described being in Anne Frank's house, and I don't know, like everything about that movie. I got out of the theater. My sister and I were like, what the hell? Like, that was really cool to watch. And I remember also my first disappointment with a movie or a book to show or movie adaptation, which was Percy Jackson. Those two are completely different.
Okay, I have not read the book.
Okay, I had to read it in 6th grade.
When I tell you, I'm obsessed with that movie. Again, I haven't read the book.
I actually haven't seen it since I've seen it in theater, which was a really long
I
time
watch
ago.
it. My sister and I
Really?
again religiously watch
Aw.
it. I love that movie. Again, it's another movie I grew up with, so
yeah, and I feel like I grew up, I guess, more with the book, but kind of because I had to read it for 6th grade.
Okay.
So I had to like read it and annotate it at such a young age. So then when I was like, oh shit, they're coming out with the movie? That's fucking cool. And then I was like, what the hell? But yeah, so I mean, I think that's also using our imaginations and like diving into different worlds makes it easier, which is how I assume directors, producers, and writers do too. Which, I mean, I love pretending I'm a part of a film or a book in some way. Like, it's just kind of fun to think about and be like, I'm on set.
I'm on
Oh,
set.
and I think, sorry, before,
Yeah.
this is like another thing that we had dived into a little bit, is that when we recorded this the first time, is it was easy. It's more easy for me to watch horror movies and kind of go through the motion of anxiety and everything because I can imagine what the bloopers look like. I can imagine what like the behind the scenes look like. And let me tell you, in my head, it sounds fun.
Yeah.
It looks and sounds so much fun. And imagine being inches away from Patrick Wilson.
or Bill, I don't want to butcher his name. I'm so sorry. Pennywise.
Oh, Skarsgård?
Yeah, there we go.
Bill Skarsgård.
I said it right one time because I had a Swedish friend and she was like, "You said it right on point." I was like, "That's what's up." But I will not try to say that.
Okay.
No, but so if there's any casting directors listening to this,
If there's any casting directors listening to this for anything horror related, please hit me up.
Yeah.
I also have a friend who's in acting school,
Yes.
desperate for a role.
For sure. And I am her manager, so
Jessica
we'll
is
have to,
her
you'll have to get through me first.
alleged manager at the moment. So, yes.
But yeah, no, and I think another thing we mentioned in the first time we recorded this, was sort of related to this, which is, what you mentioned, the bloopers, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to like haunted houses,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Some people, probably a lot of people, because I get the same reaction all the time.
I was one of them.
Yeah. And Jessica was one of the biggest ones. And I think your sister gave me the same thing as of, okay, I can't do haunted houses. And I think we kind of dove into it a little too deeply and we went through a whole motion of like probably why. But I feel like being in an actual setting where you are the victim, I think freaks me out a lot more than just being able to watch it from my couch, you know? Given I had also said that like I've seen one too many movies about haunted houses go wrong type of stuff, and like the movie Haunt,
Hellfest.
and Hellfest, and
what's that other one? It's
Hell
so
House.
good. Hell House.
like stuff like that I'm just like, there's so many things that could go wrong in a haunted house that people, can think are fake but are not. So yeah, that's just one of the things that I was like, ugh. So Jessica gives me a lot of crap, and I'm sure I'm still gonna get a lot of crap, but I'm changing that. Okay, we're changing that. I was actually able to go to a couple haunted houses last year.
Nice.
They were at Six Flags, so I consider them baby haunted houses.
Okay, that's fine.
They freaked me out nonetheless, but I had fun.
Small steps are also progress.
The amount of adrenaline that goes in me through the haunted house, and then when you get out, like that huge wave of relief when you're like,
like you survived that.
I survived that. Yeah, it was crazy.
And again, I mentioned this in the first time we recorded this, but I've kind of become desensitized to haunted houses.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Because not trying to get too deep into it, but my sister is visually impaired, so I'm typically the one to lead the haunted houses. And because I've done that for the past like 2 or 3 years with my sister, I feel like I know every trick there in the book. I'm like, okay, you're gonna come in through there, blah 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 blah, good, whatever. But yeah, no. If there's a haunted house that genuinely like is able to spook me, they get a gold star.
They get a gold.
Because,
that's awesome though. That's awesome.
Yeah, because most of them I'm like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
I'm excited to check out some.
I think you said that there's one. Didn't you say
Cutting
that?
Edge in Fort Worth?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think Cutting Edge. You said one was like I get kind of spooked.
If you've ever been at Cutting Edge or you have not, you feel like you're in a movie.
And it's also like an hour long, isn't it?
It's like an hour or two. It's so good.
That's considered big girl haunted house for me, and I don't think I can go that far yet.
Okay, well, we'll get there eventually.
Okay, yes.
We'll get there eventually.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that's a whole different setting for me.
For sure. But funny enough, I wrote an essay on horror last fall.
Oh, yeah.
And not trying to brag, but I got a pretty good grade on it.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was.
Right.
But anyway, it was an argumentative essay on whether or not the horror genre is a bad influence or if it's to blame for most of the violence that occurs around the world. And I said, horror movies or games have an effect on anyone that watches them or plays the games. Whether most deny it or not, humans cannot be immune to stress or fear. It is a natural feeling we as humans feel. Basically, what I'm trying to say with this is that horror is fun for most people, yes, But we're not trying to force anyone to love horror. If it's too much for you, understandable. You're a human being with emotions and feelings, and that's valid.
Right.
Again, if haunted houses is too much for you,
Now.
If you're Monica, I will force you.
Right.
But if you're not Monica,
Then
I will not force
it's
you to do
understandable.
anything that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
But to most people, like I mentioned, horror excites them, and to others, it frightens them. No judgment here. Maybe a little.
Right.
Not too much.
Not too much. And I feel like unless like we had mentioned this in the first recording, is that like unless you're like a diagnosed psychopath that genuinely does not know how to feel feelings, which I'm curious about the fear part and anxiety part,
Right.
which it comes with. I feel like anxiety comes with fear. It's kind of like a branch off. So if you don't feel fear, like can you watch and be in certain things that I don't know. That's a genuine question, but I don't know. I think that's another thing. I feel like that's a whole different ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. And I feel like because of that reason, which your essay sounds cool.
Yeah.
So glad you got a 90.
Thank
Good
you.
for you. But I feel like because of that, like horror gets a pretty bad reputation most times, and it's not taking as serious, which sucks because horror movies show you some real world scenarios and that, you know, maybe truth frightens people, and they just kind of try to, you know, throw it under the rug and bury it, which is unfortunate because I feel like a lot of actors and actresses put their blood, sweat, and tears into these really great horror movies. You know what I mean?
For sure. I know. I'd kill. I'd kill to see my favorite horror movies get the recognition they deserve by winning an award, not just being nominated. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you see them get it nominated, yeah, but it's really rare to see them actually win an award. I feel like they deserve it just as much as, sure, the rom-coms and drama and all of those do, you know?
Yeah, and it's like rare. Like, don't get us wrong. Like, we know a lot of horror movies now actually get nominated for different things, like Best Sound, Critics' Choice, and things like that, which is cool. I think Jordan Peele actually won original screenplay for Get Out, which great movie, awesome. You know, and things like that. So it's really cool to just be able to see like directors and movies in general and like actors and actresses win awards from these movies because like damn right you did really great in that. I'm still waiting for actually I don't even know if it's true or not, but Toni Collette, if she won something for Hereditary, because when I tell you she terrified me in that movie.
Yeah.
The mom from Hereditary.
Yes.
That movie's also beautiful. But yeah, and I think right now Silence of the Lambs is really the only one that's won Best Picture and is considered a horror movie. So, but I mean that's neither here nor there because I'm sure people feel like that about, you know, people like their favorite artist or like during the Grammys and like you know. So I don't know.
I feel like when it comes to that as well, people kind of separate and rightly so. They kind of separate gore, paranormal.
That's true. Yeah, there's so many
psychological.
subgenres.
I'm a gore type of gal.
Jessica loves her gore. She loves blood.
Cannot do psychological for the life of me. And I don't know if I need to talk to my therapist about this,
Probably.
but I just can't do psychological because I think we mentioned this the first time. The remake of The Invisible Man.
Ah, yes. That was great.
I couldn't. I love it and I will rewatch it.
Yeah.
I will rewatch it.
Yeah.
But just the gaslighting that happens in that movie
It's pretty. I feel like there's some triggers in that movie that are a bit strong, but I think it was a really well-made movie.
For sure. No, it's
100%.
absolutely terrifying.
It is pretty good.
But I feel like my little brain just can't handle it. Like
Your brain can't stuff all that in
Monica
there. When
showed
gore
me-
is just so easy for you to watch because you're just like, oh, that was gross.
Yeah.
But you're like, eh.
Like my sister can't watch Saw. I mean, she can watch the first one, but like
I can see there's so many people that which by the way, sorry, kind of a branch off, but did you know that James Wan is a co-creator of Saw?
I think
Like the
I knew
Saw
that.
franchise? I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I found that out like a couple of months ago, and I was like, what?
I'm not trying to sound like a fake fan, but one of the actors with the glasses. I'm so sorry. I love you. Just know
With
that
the
I love you.
glasses, very specific.
From Saw is in Insidious.
Lies.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he's also the director of
Oh, I
Saw,
love
if I'm not
that.
mistaken. Yeah. But yeah. But anyways.
I like it. I think I don't know. Yeah, I think there's so many subgenres when it comes to horror, but I mean, and I think kind of, you know, piggybacking off of your essay of like what you were writing about is that movies don't make psychos. You know what I mean?
that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's only fair. And I think that's another thing that people are like, it's all of these like gore type of movies and video games and things like that. And it's like, yeah, everyone takes in things differently.
Yes.
But best believe someone's not gonna watch. I mean, and what's the rest of the quote? Is that movies don't?
They only make them more creative.
Yes,
Yes.
movies don't make psychos. Movies make psychos creative. Or something
Which
like
I also
Very-
know that, again, like early 2000s, these two kids, I don't know if you heard this, Monica, or in the early 2000s, these two kids were trying to remake Scream, and
Oh no! Well, I don't think they were trying to remake Scream. Were they? I thought
I
they were
think they
just
were-
trying to like. I think like they just loved horror movies so much that, because like there was this one guy. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had talked about this like a long time ago. Like in one of the kids' lockers, like he had like the Scream poster, but he also had like what was it? I could have sworn I saw in his locker like Texas Chainsaw and like picture posters in his locker.
yeah.
And I think they had said in like in a description of him in both of them and that they were really big fans of horror movies. But I think they got an idea from Scream to create like the unfortunate event that they did.
And can I just say, I feel, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, horror is coming back.
Horror is coming back. I feel like
Oh my gosh.
I feel like it kind of died down for a
I-
little bit, maybe.
For
or,
sure, because I remember when I was in high school, I like to think I was the girl that was known for liking horror and all
Yeah.
of that. And I feel like if I were to walk into a high school now, you'd see a
People
bunch
would
of
be like,
people.
"Hey." I feel like
yeah.
it's a kind of picking off of what you said earlier is that like I feel like it's a little more accepted now. Of now people are going
Yeah.
to. I feel like a lot of millennials now who grew up with horror. I can kind of use my brother-in-law and my sister as an example since they helped me grow up with it, and then I can see that they also help my nephew watch horror movies, and he's like right now like 13, but they let him watch it because they're like, hey. I want you to remember, like, none of this is real.
Right.
And if you feel like you can't watch, I feel like there are certain movies that he can't watch because he can't watch them. Like, he feels very, like, ooh, no, like, I
Yeah.
can't watch it. And I think it's like paranormal movies.
And actually, well, now that you say that, and I know
He
you
likes
mentioned it
monster
earlier.
type of movies, yeah.
Now that you mentioned it earlier too, is like you need to remember that none of this is real. A little story. My sister and I watched The Boy in theaters.
Oh, that movie's good.
It's a good movie.
movie. Part 2 sucks.
And what's his name? Brahms? I'm just saying. Hey,
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
gonna say nothing.
Also, one thing we're gonna learn a little bit more about Jessica in a couple of other episodes, and I won't ever put it into words, but I will let y'all just figure it out for yourselves.
Okay. But ananyway, no, I was watching it and with my sister in the theater,
Yeah.
in the movie theater. And when he came out of the, I don't know
Walls.
what it was actually. I don't remember what specific scene it was, but you could just feel me like freeze. And my sister looks over at me. She like literally looks at me in the eyes and she squeezed my hand. She's like, "Hey, like this is just a movie. You're here with me." And I'm like, "Okay," but I was
It's
genuinely
because
terrified.
horror is scary, and I think that's kind of the whole point of it,
Yeah.
right? But I think I don't know. I feel like everyone's a give or take, whether you want to introduce it to someone at such a young age or not, and whether how they want to take it. But I think that's another life lesson to learn too. It's like, hey, I'm going to show you something. The feeling that you're supposed to get from this and the whole concept of horror is that you're going to get scared. But I need you to remember that things like this are like make believe and things like that. But and I got to a point at an age where I was like in middle school where I got so obsessed with horror movies that I would look up like interviews and I
Yeah.
would look up like behind the scenes on how they made things,
Yeah,
and
I would
that's
do
what
that
made me
too.
even like, holy fuck, like someone spent hours making that costume, or someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that just made me like appreciate horror a lot more. So
For sure.
I think it was great.
And I also think that I think we spoke about this a little bit earlier. When it comes to kind of like haunted houses,
Yeah.
when you walk in, it's like I don't know, the feeling you get when you're like in line, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like
It's like oh my
even when
God.
you're in line for like a roller coaster. When
That's
I
true.
used to get in line for roller coasters, I don't feel it as much for
Mm-hmm.
rides anymore. So I think it's easy to watch, but it's just so like fun to feel.
And then you kind of mentioned this again earlier, but again, millennials and how I think they're helping younger,
Like our generation,
Yeah,
a little
our
bit more,
generation.
or even younger, to be like, hey,
like,
this
hey,
is
horror movies
fun.
are
and then make a
fun.
Halloween like a really big deal, like
Because I
think,
feel like millennials grew up with, what is it, boomers?
yeah, as
or
parents,
generation something.
Yeah.
And they were more like
don't watch
traditional-
that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
like don't watch that stuff. That's the devil's thing.
Right.
Like, which yes, it is because it's about Satan.
Right.
But listen, it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
Like, it's fun to
and-
jump into that type of world
and
and you
what-
get something different.
I like that you mentioned that because I hadn't thought about this. But for example, I feel like, let's say 5 to 7 years ago, my sister were to walk out with her Chucky backpack, I feel like she would have gotten so many ugly
looks and be like, what the
like
hell?
what the hell?
Like,
She's
that
so
is not
weird.
Yeah,
but now,
probably.
like, I'm not even
It's
kidding.
like, hey, where did you get that?
Yeah, no, literally,
Yeah.
we went shopping like this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of compliments my sister
Aw.
got on her Chucky backpack.
I got that
But
exact same backpack.
I'm literally looking
It's
at it right
beautiful.
now. But yeah, no, seriously, like if 7, when I was in high school, like 7, 8 years ago, we were to talk about anything horror, I feel like people would be like, oh, you're weird, blah, 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 blah. And now it's a norm, which I really appreciate.
100%
But
same. We love the horror community, and I
Yeah.
think we're gonna
And
continue that
we would
100%.
never try to gatekeep.
We're never going to try to gatekeep horror unless unless we absolutely have to, which let me tell you, and we're going to go into this a lot more, but we recently went to a convention that we've been to before, and when we tell you the amount of people that were here for all of the wrong reasons, it felt so like
It did not feel good.
it did not feel good to be part. Like, I really don't think those are the type of people that wanted to be at this convention because they liked horror. It
For
was
sure.
specifically just because they wanted to meet someone
Celebrities.
specific, and it's like all for the wrong things. And it's like, you're not even there like to appreciate their work. You're just there because of who they are, like, and
It sucks.
and we're gonna go into a whole like different conversation about that because we're gonna dedicate an episode or two to like conventions and things that we go to, which are always a lot of fun. I think the one that we went to in Houston was fun. I
Oh,
think
the
that
Houston
one was
great.
good.
I feel like everyone that was the one in Houston were like everyone was there for
That
horror.
felt more homey. Like, it felt a lot more like, hey, cool, versus like trying to fight people and
Yeah.
like hearing people say nasty comments and things. So
But now that we're here, shout out Lloyd. Hi. We
shout
love
out
your store.
Lloyd too. Yeah, he's really cool. Hopefully we'll get him on a episode sometime in the future. He's really cool. He's actually the creator of the convention that we're talking about, and he's like super, super cool, very charismatic guy, and
Yeah.
like he's awesome.
But
I think we've done a lot of talking.
we've done a lot of talking, and you guys probably want to.
Yeah. I
go
feel
to-
good about this one. This one's gonna get posted, and this one feels a lot better.
Yeah, this
I
one
like
feels
this one.
good. I feel like it's more
A little more
natural.
put together.
Yeah. This concludes our episode. I feel
Yes.
like I'm pretty content with what we spoke about today. And
100%.
if by any chance we missed something we wanted to talk about, we'll probably mention it in our next episode, which we'll be talking about, drumroll please, It 2017 and It 1990.
Yes.
So tune in next week to hear our thoughts and opinions on this iconic remake.
I love it so much. It has a special place at our hearts since Jessica and I's first convo was about Pennywise. So if you know, you know. But I'm really excited to talk about it. I love the remake and I love the original too. I don't think Jessica's seen the original in a really long time,
Yeah, it's been a
so we're gonna rewatch it and see what she thinks. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end it here. But thanks again to everyone who's listening, especially if you've made it all the way to the end of this episode. We had to re-record it, but no biggie. I think it sounds just as great. But yeah, we appreciate the support, and also if you understood the reference to our title, you get a huge high five and a fist bump and a cookie.
And a cookie.
We'll see if we mail it to you if we know you.
We'll mail it to you if you live far, but if you
If you live close, we might
or
drop
if
it
you're
off.
a coworker,
Or if you're a coworker, yeah, who knows?
we'll see you at work
We'll see you at work and we'll give it
with
to
a
you.
cookie.
Right.
And a big thank you to Anchor FM for allowing this podcast to happen as well. Again, we do have an Instagram. It's at Scream City Podcast.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, please tune in to next week again.
Yes.
And please let your friends know about our podcast. We'd
It's
really
gonna be
appreciate that.
A lot of fun.
We would really appreciate that.
100%. Spread the word, guys. We're trying to get
Yes.
Scream City to be a little bit bigger so we can talk about more stuff and have more people on the podcast.
And as always, thanks for listening to Scream City. We've been your hosts, Jessica.
And Monica,
We'll talk to y'all next week.
stay safe and stay spooky. Ooh.
Oof, that was scary. I can't wait to come back next week.